I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting for Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Corporate officer, any late items? No late items. We get approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Betts, Councillor Peak, all in favor? That carries. Consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to remove item H, from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, the drought resources for local governments.
Okay, we'll go down to where do we stick that now?
The agenda item 11.
Number 11? Oh, yeah. Okay. So H. Anything else? Councillor Peak?
Yes, could we remove E and do the same thing, just a slight discussion?
Okay. Go the same place, number 11. If I could get approval of the agenda, consent agenda as amended. Councillor Betts, Councillor Barkwell, all in favor? And that carries. Moving straight on to my report. It's a bit of a long one, I'll warn you now. On July 5th, Councillor Van Elpen and I attended the regular board meeting of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, where directors supported a review of the elected officials' code of conduct that was adopted in 2023 by the RDOS, Village of Karamias, Town of Osoyoos, Town of Princeton, and then the City of Penticton. Summerland and Oliver opted to keep the codes that we already had in place. In the past year, the RDOS has spent approximately $12,000 in legal fees dealing with code of conduct complaints, including reimbursement of board members for their costs to respond to those complaints. A working group of the region's corporate officers will conduct the review and bring forward proposed amendments as deemed necessary. The regional district is also streamlining its corporate structure with 4 departments headed by a managing director to replace 10 departments each headed by a manager. Besides achieving efficiencies, this new structure is meant to help break down departmental silos and enable greater collaboration. The board also agreed to apply to the Civil Forfeitures Office for funding to go towards victim services and RCMP bait car. Under the Provincial Civil Forfeiture Act, half the monies that have been forfeited are to be used for crime prevention and remediation. And organizations can apply for one-time funding for various projects. July 11th was the official opening of the rebuilt pier, and I have to say, it was the best attended ribbon cutting event I've ever seen. All members of council were present, as were MLA Dan Ashton, PIB Councillor Dolly Kruger, members of Summerland Rotary, and other dignitaries. The best part was all the kids patiently listening to the speeches. And as soon as I snipped the ribbon and declared the pier open, they sprinted past us and all to the end of the pier and jumped into the lake. Many people thought we had staged that, but in fact, it was completely spontaneous. Seeing the kids' enthusiasm and all their smiles make you realize why it was worth rebuilding the pier for the next generation and why its replacement was a priority for this council. The pier replacement is part of a larger vision to revitalize the Summerland waterfront. Another part is year-round public washrooms at Peach Orchard Beach Park, which we officially opened along with the pier. Thank you to Deputy Mayor Traynor for handling those proceedings, which included members of the Summerland Community Arts Council and the artist Larry Hunter, who expanded the existing mural to the new section of the building, maintaining the look and feel of the original artwork of the late Angela Hook. On the same evening of July 11th, Councillors Peak, Barkwell, and I were at the Summerland Community Garden at the Alliance Church for the Chamber of Commerce's Off the Clock event, which is the new name for Business After Business. It was impressive to see the community garden in full bloom and how the number of plots has increased in such a short time. The garden provides an important service to the community, not only for the produce grown for the food bank, but also for making plots available to members of the community who might not otherwise have the opportunity to grow their own food and to pull their own weeds, I would add. On July 13th, Councillor Patton, Barkwell Peak, and I joined our local firefighters at the fire hall to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Summerland Fire Department. It was another well-attended family event and included the RCMP, BC Ambulance Service, Emergency Support Services, the Animal Lifeline Emergency Response Team, Fire Smart, and last but not least, the mascots Sparky and Ember. It's a mayor's duty to not only cut ribbons, but also to cut cakes. And it was an honor to join Fire Chief Robinson to cut the fire department's birthday cake, which we did using a fire axe. Last Thursday, July 18th, I attended a BC Mayor Zoom call hosted by Bowen Ma, the Provincial Minister for Emergency Management, for an update on the wildfire and drought situation in BC. With the hot, dry weather continuing, the wildfire risk is currently high or extreme in most of the province. The numbers are changing all the time, but I've just checked, and as of right now, there have been 908 wildfires in BC so far this year, about half of those just in the past week. Of those 908, more than 300 were human-caused. Province-wide campfire ban is now in effect, and here in Summerland, we have closed Giants Head Road, Mountain Park Road to vehicle traffic to reduce the risk of fire. The Summerland Fire Department was called out to several human-caused brush fires in the past week, including a couple to assist BC Wildfire Service on fires towards Peachland. One fire closed Highway 97, and with work continuing at the landslide, it brought home how we in the Okanagan are dependent on Highway 97 as the only way in and out. I mentioned this to Minister Ma on the Zoom call and reminded her of the letter signed by all Okanagan mayors last fall calling on the need for an alternate route through the valley. She agreed an all-of-government approach was needed as opposed to just talking to the Ministry of Transportation, and suggested that we should take it up at UBCM. Finally, speaking of the slide, it seems our lobbying efforts have paid off, and the Ministry of Transportation has reestablished 4-lane traffic on Highway 97 south of the slide from Callan Road to Summerland, at least for the summertime. It'll likely revert back to 2 lanes, one in each direction later in the year, but the reprieve should help with some of the congestion and frustrations during this busy tourist season. That's my report, and I'll ask the CIO for his.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've experienced vandalism throughout Giants Head Mountain Park, including damage to many of the new posts and rope, installed to guide trail users on sanctioned trails, and restrict areas of environmental rehabilitation. Also, there is damage to safety road posts, which provide awareness of road edges near steep slopes. We are working with the RCMP and request if anyone out there has information relating to the issue that they do report it to the RCMP. 2024 Housing Needs Survey is now open for residents to share their experiences and thoughts relating to housing in Summerland. People can find the survey on the district website. The survey findings will be used in conjunction with the latest housing statistics to expand our understanding of the current and emerging housing challenges and needs of the community, and will inform an updated housing needs report in 2024. Everyone is encouraged to participate, and the deadline to complete the survey is August 18th, 2024. Of course, paper copies are also available at Municipal Hall if that format is preferred. Finally, we have put some temporary signage regarding etiquette for a few areas, including Rotary Beach, Powell Beach, Peach Orchard Beach, and Giants Head Mountain. Users are reminded to be considerate of others in keeping dogs off those beaches and managing music to respectful levels. Also, no smoking or vaping is permitted especially on Giants Head Mountain, where there is presently a very high fire risk. With that, I conclude my report.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions for either of us? No? Okay, so we'll, no delegations, we'll move on to public comment opportunity. This is for business items. So none of the development reports in section 18 can be commented on for statutory reasons. But any item in section 9 can. We have one person pre-registered to speak, so I'll ask her to speak up, to come up first. Janet Stead. If you could just come up. Is Janet here? Jane. Yeah, Jane. Okay. Oh, sorry. They wrote that down wrong. So just turn on the microphone, push button, and go ahead. You have 2 minutes, please.
I'm Jane Stead, and I'm here representing the Summerland Rodeo Grounds Equine Development Committee. Over the past 9 months, our executive board has worked collaboratively with the district staff to finalize the master plan and to create a lease agreement that is fair and workable. We support both of these documents before you today. The master plan will give us a solid vision and blueprint for future improvements to the grounds as funds allow, which will reflect the historic equine use and the spirit that it has long represented. We recognize that the contents of the master plan are conceptual in nature and that further stakeholder input would be required to determine the specifics of adding any amenity outlined in it. The lease agreement will enhance the use of the rodeo grounds for equine users while continuing to allow for compatible historical and multi-use events. As a group of community volunteers, we feel that taking on the lease for an initial 2-year period will afford us all the opportunity to ensure that this arrangement is beneficial to the community. It will also allow us time to establish our operating model and initiate some improvements. Sorry, just change. Having both a master plan and lease agreement will also allow us to make application for grants and funding support for our priority improvement initiatives. As you see in the recommendation package submitted by staff, the district has been subsidizing the operation of the grounds for many years. This new lease model will allow the rodeo grounds to be vibrant and accessible while at the same time saving operating costs within district's budget. We will continue to look for support from the district, however, by submitting under the permissive tax exemption program before the July 31st deadline. This support would ensure that we can proceed with startup operational costs and with much needed improvements. As you all know, the facility was built and maintained since the 1970s with funds raised and volunteer labor from the equestrian community, and we're very excited to continue this equine tradition at the grounds while also finding ways to share this incredible facility with non-equine users.
Thank you very much. Would anybody like to speak? A little musical interlude. Just come up to the podium, ma'am, and state which item you'd like to speak on. 9.
I'd like to speak about the same topic.
And just need your name and civic address, please. Sorry. Then go ahead.
Denise Trudeau. You want my address, did you say? 104 Fish Lake Road, Summerland. I'd like to speak about the rodeo grounds as well. I know that there was a master plan by a consultant group put together, and I was excited when I went to the consultant group that this was going to include all the vested people that were interested in these grounds. Since this has happened, we were not notified about the proposal by the equine group that this was going to be leased, or a proposed lease at least, to take over or at least take care of the rodeo grounds. Now, in my view, I believe that as a group of invested people and groups, the society, Summerland Bluegrass Society, the Equine Committee, everybody, and the District of Summerland could probably become, or excuse me, I'm nervous. I think that we could do a much better job in asking for grants, providing a lot more money for the rodeo grounds. Now, the rodeo grounds are a place that is 80 acres of grounds that need, it's, how would I say this? It's, these grounds are unusual for our area to be such a large area, and to be used by the committee would be the best way, or the community, pardon me. I think if we came together as groups to ask for grants, this would be a better way. Now, when it comes to the Summerland Bluegrass Society, I need to speak about that as well, because we need to know well in advance what the price will be for our event. Now, that is another thing that I need to know ahead of time as well, because I ask for grants, I write for grants, and these are the things that I need to know ahead of time.
I'll have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, I was disappointed that we weren't notified about this proposal ahead of time so that we could talk with the council about this. And I do appreciate the time to talk about, or to put my advice. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak? Nope. So we'll move on to our business items. And the first one up is the Summerland Rotary Grounds Master Plan Final Report. And Ms. Mullen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. As Council is aware, staff have paused finalizing the Summerland Rodeo Grounds Master Plan while implementing Council's direction to engage in exploratory discussions with the Summerland Rodeo Grounds Equine Development Committee in leasing the lands and managing the facility. These negotiations have resulted in a draft agreement supported by both staff and the SRG EDC, which will be presented to Council following this report. In tandem with these lease agreements, staff and the SRG EDC have revisited the September 2023 Summerland Rodeo Grounds Master Plan draft and have made updates based on council feedback from the October 17th, 2023 workshop and SRG EDC recommendations. The vision and strategic goals remain as originally presented in September of last year. Updates to the plan balances the continuation of equestrian activities alongside existing trail and event uses, and the option for future complementary and compatible multi-use opportunities. So as far as a summary of what's been updated in the plan, I'll quickly highlight those for you. Removal of disc golf and replaced with a more general reference of potential future multi-use areas. New uses would be considered on a case-by-case basis as the opportunities arise, which may include proposals from the community and community organizations, with proposals requiring further analysis for fit and function. While infrastructure upgrades such as equine camping, pens, shelters, and manure storage are still deemed important to the property, it was identified that further engagement and research is recommended prior to implementing new equestrian amenities to confirm more detailed designs and site fitting. The equestrian trail route was amended as per recommendations from the equestrians. We confirmed the location of the gate to restrict vehicles going east into the backcountry of the park. And that gate could be opened when required for specific use. Other proposed optional gates have been removed from the plan. The business plan section of the master plan was amended to include consideration of negotiating a lease agreement with the Summerland Rodeo Grounds Equine Development Committee to manage and operate the equine focus section of the property. And all relevant text, maps, legends, tables, and budget have been updated to reflect these changes. Staff recommend that council endorse the updated draft of the Summerland Rodeo Grounds Master Plan, which provides direction for the overall management of the park for the next 15 years. It is a guiding document for consideration for future actions and investments. Capital spending is dependent on annual budget deliberations and not a commitment to spend. Funding for the investments could be a combination of District of Summerland capital reserves, SRG EDC contributions, as well as grants and even other community organization contributions, partnerships, and sponsorship. Future new uses of the park could be considered on a case-by-case basis to ensure it integrates well with the current uses. The Summerland Rodeo Grounds property is a valuable municipal park, which has been identified by the community as needing revitalization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions? Councilor Betts.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you for all of the information that's come together after quite a long working period as user groups. I did think that was interesting about how Summerland Bluegrass Festival was just wondering how about their future with bookings and things on site. And I'm wondering if there's been some discussion with the SRG EDC about ensuring a future for the Summerland Bluegrass Concert Festival. Do you know about that?
That might be a better question for the next item, but if
Pardon me?
I'll let Ms. Mullen answer.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Betts. So yes, it will be part of the lease discussion and as far as the terms of the agreement, but we have had discussions with the Equine Development Committee about honoring historical bookings. And you'll hear more about sort of the terms as far as setting the fees. So we've provided the fee structure that we currently use, but it would be up to the Equine Development Committee to review those fees and potentially adapt them based on market industry standards. Or potentially if there's increased service, there might be increased fees, but council does have the right to go back and override any fees if it's deemed appropriate.
Yes, but it's about more so, I guess, the master plan specifics. I keep forgetting that they're two separate items. So in digging into the master plan details and looking at the different phases of what the approaches are, there was just a couple of things that that I was digging into and just kind of wondering about. One was the questions about which parking lot is whose responsibility. And I just felt like there was a different understanding. This might be the lease one again. Sorry, guys. Okay, we can just jump to the master plan one. I kind of was doing all my reading together. So with the fenced bike skills park, I noticed that in the planning, it seems like it's fenced. And is that something that is an amenity that those decisions are made as the opportunity arises, or is that kind of the long-term plan? Because I just wondered for the transition to Mount Conkle Park, if we wanted to have like a whole fenced off bike skills park area.
Through the mayor to Councillor Betts. So this is a concept plan. So in the concept itself, it displays the bike skills park area and potential barrier to protect bikes kind of going into where the equestrian trail is. So that's quite an important equestrian feature there of going out into the Conkle Mountain trails. So the concept is to have a bit of a barrier, so maybe a different way in and out of the skills park, but everything is conceptual. So should a community group come forward with a proposal, I know the Kinsmen were the ones that had initiated this as part of the master plan as an idea, and they may have funding and resources to be able to come forward with a proposal around a bike skills park. So should that proposal come forward, they would look at this concept as a guide, but more detailed design and discussion would happen as far as how that would be laid out and whether or not it would even be approved by council.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarity, are we going, when we take a look at the master plan, because I do have questions also in regards to the lease agreement part, which come back to the master plan. So is the master plan actually what we're dealing with right now? It's going to be brought in for information purposes, but no budget allotments because budget will be based yearly on our budget deliberations. Is that what we're going to, is that the process that we'll be looking at?
Through the mayor to Councillor Patton. So the staff recommendation is to endorse the plan as a guiding document. And yes, it's not a commitment to spending, it's a guiding document, and we would be using that as we build budget 5-year capital plans, talking through it with the Equine Development Committee, and then each year it would be any spending would be part of the budget deliberations, and council can choose whether or not to invest any of the recommendations or not, or look for other sources of funding.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Bennett.
This is where I spent a lot of my reading these last few days, was kind of digging into the master plan. So please just go with it, because I did have some questions. And so one of the things I noticed in the phased plan was that looking at the cook shack and concession, and it was described as a key asset for events and bookings. And so I noticed that in phase one, we're looking at, I believe that that's where it would be removed. The demolition and removal of the south grandstands and concession building would be in phase one. But the opportunity for a new concession and cook shack wouldn't come up again until phase two. And that's kind of more looking at a 4 to 9 year window in our budget and planning. And so I just was trying to get a feeling. I mean, it seems like it's an asset for the site, for bookings, and for having like a functioning facility. If that's not something that should be kind of done in tandem, and how that discussion kind of goes.
Through the mayor to Councillor Betts. So the removal of the building itself was a priority, as well as a few other items, the bleachers. Because they're deemed condemned, that was identified as a priority. Things could be moved up this is a guiding document. Council has the ability to move things ahead if they think they're important. Right now, we haven't been using it. So we've had the opportunity through the Bluegrass Festival, and did have somebody coming in and doing food service through the existing clubhouse. So, I mean, they could probably speak to how that worked, but there was ability to still have food service at that event. It might not be ideal, but it is doable. And that would be up if it was deemed an appropriate upgrade versus other things that come up. They could be moved around.
Okay, if there's no other questions, somebody want to bring a motion forward? Can we get the staff recommendation up on the screen?
Thank you. I would just like to add that I think that the summary of the master plan updates is really important, and it just shows a lot of collaboration with the user groups. And I hope that there can continue to be positive collaborations with the other user groups on site, and that those positive relationships continue. But I just think that it just shows a lot of working together, and thank you, Lori, for so much time that's really gone into the project. I know last fall we all felt a little bit that it was just moving a little fast with the information. And I think that, I mean, I certainly appreciate this level of collaboration to come forward with a good plan.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think it was some good compromises were made all around. I think it keeps the focus of the rodeo grounds on equine, but still allows all other uses as well. I understand, people advocating disc golf will be disappointed, but I think we can put our minds to it. We can find another area that would be suitable for disc golf. So I think it's good work all around. It's taken a while, but we got there. If no other comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. That carries. Moving on to the next item, the rodeo grounds lease agreement. Director of Community Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff are presenting this report to council as a follow-up to council's direction to engage in exploratory discussions with the Summerland Rodeo Grounds Equine Development Committee in leasing the lands and managing the facility similar to the Summerland Golf Course model. Council had noted that it is challenging to spend a large sum of new money if it is perceived as being for an exclusive activity when the opinions from the public on what to do with the site was divided. The Rodeo Grounds Master Plan engagement process revealed the public was split on whether the property be equestrian focused versus multi-use focused. Council determined one option would be to offer exclusive use via an exclusive lease to the equine group, which would afford full discretion on the use of the overall area, but would also therefore require the organization to take on full obligation for the upkeep and improvements. Staff have been in discussions with the SRGEDC since November 2023. The proposed lease agreement is attached to your council package as attachment 1 and is presented to you for consideration for approval and would be effective starting January 1st of next year. The proposal from the SRGEDC is also attached to the report and is similarly based on the lease agreement for the Peachland Riding Club. The highlights of the agreement are outlined in your report, and I will go through them in detail, starting with the term, which, as Jane had noticed, a 2-year lease with an option to extend for an additional 3 years. The lease fee is proposed as $1 per year as requested by the SRGEDC. Insurance would be required by the committee of up to an amount not less than $5 million. As far as the caretaker relationship, the SRGEDC would liaise with the caretaker directly on maintenance, event support, and security. However, the District of Summerland will continue to manage and oversee the contract agreement with the caretakers. As far as the footprint, we did scale back the footprint from the original proposed area from the committee to be focused on the parking lot of the SRG area, the clubhouse, the rings, and the upper flat area, which we consider the height of land. So a total of 11.5 acres. And that is on the map that's in the back of the lease agreement if you want to refer to it. As far as booking administration, the committee would manage all the bookings happening in that area. Their intention is to honor all the historical bookings, as well as the free school access to the best of their ability. So their intention is to work with the current user groups to make that happen. And they are also responsible for collecting the insurance from all the renters, and the District of Summerland would be listed as additional insured, which is what we currently do. The committee would collect and retain 100% of the revenues. And as I had mentioned to Councillor Betts, the fees and charges can be used as a guide of what we have in our bylaw, but they have the ability to amend those fees as they see fit. And we will, the District of Summerland will have the right to provide direction on fees if there are concerns, but they may look at increasing levels of service or changing things or providing different amenities that we haven't offered in the past, and that will be up to the committee to set those. The committee would be 100% responsible for paying the operational and general maintenance expenses and utilities. They would be responsible for landscaping and groundskeeping of the lease area, washroom and clubhouse cleaning, repairs and maintenance to the lease area property, amenities, equipment, fixtures, appliances, systems, and buildings. The District of Summerland would be responsible for invasive weed management, manure removal once a year, winterizing the buildings at the end of the season, and general road maintenance. Major repairs over $5,000 will be discussed on a case-by-case basis as they come up as far as determining responsibility. As far as safety and maintenance repairs, the committee would be responsible for basic maintenance and repairs. The District of Summerland would be responsible for legislative items such as fire extinguishers and signage, as well as inspections. So in general terms, the committee is to repair items. If something major needs to be replaced, that would fall to the District of Summerland. So for example, if the furnace breaks, the committee would be responsible for fixing it. If it was a complete failure and needed to be replaced and becomes a major capital replacement item, then that would fall in the District of Summerland as per this proposed agreement. Condemned assets as identified in the master plan. So when we talked about the cook shack as well as the south bleachers, that would be the responsibility in this proposal for the district to remove those. Equipment and tools. The committee has requested access to the items that we currently provide for use, which is including a tractor, harrows, weed eater, picnic tables, and garbage cans. So everything up there. They would take over the responsibility of those, and they would be responsible for the maintenance of those items. We'll do an inventory at the end of the season and provide that list, and the intention is that would be remaining the same at the end of the lease term, with the exception of the tractor, because we do share the tractor. So we, as a district, would continue to maintain that. As far as minor capital upgrades, it is written that there would be approval of the District of Summerland required before the committee implements any upgrades or adds any infrastructure. And a funding source needs to be identified prior to implementing any of the minor upgrades. As far as major upgrades, they would be discussed and recommended in the 5-year capital plan and subject to council approval. So staff and the committee would work together to build that 5-year plan and also identify potential funding source. So whether that's through the District of Summerland, through the committee and their fundraising efforts, could be cost shared, there could be fundraising, could be grant funded. So we'll look at those things as far as the 5-year capital plan. And just a note, as Jane highlighted at the beginning, the SRG EDC plans to apply for a permissive tax exemption, which is due at the end of this month. And I'll just highlight, in accordance to section 26 of the community charter, should council approve this lease agreement, the district would post and publish a notice of its intention to lease the premises to the Summerland Rodeo Grounds Equine Development Committee. Also, in accordance to section 24 of the community charter, the district will post and publish a notice of assistance to lease the premises to the Summerland Rodeo Grounds Equine Development Committee for less than market value, should council agree to the committee's request for the annual lease amount of $1 per year. So with that, I'll turn it back to council for any questions and direction.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Mayor. So booking administration, historical bookings, including free school access to the best of their abilities and collect insurance from all renters. What happens if we have a new applicant, somebody who's not historically been on those lands? Are they treated differently? How do they approach?
Through the mayor to Councillor Peak. So that would be as per their booking process. So likely an application would go in. They would look at what's currently already in the calendar and consider any new bookings similar to what we would do. But it would be up to them to determine how it would fit in the schedule and what the fees would be.
Will they publish a calendar so people know what's booked or what is traditionally in certain places? Or how will that be managed? I don't know how that might move forward.
Through the mayor, Councillor Betts, that would be up to them to determine sort of what sort of, I don't think they've got into that level of detail yet, but if there is an agreed upon lease agreement, they would start working on building their policies and procedures around rentals and potentially maybe purchasing some rental software and maybe, amending their website. But that would be all up to the committee on how they would promote as well as highlight what's happening up there.
I think that kind of thing is very important because I think it increases the use, and the more certainty people have about what the charge might be or what the availability is, I think that all makes it better. Online applications make life simpler, all those kind of good things. I did have another question in terms of, the fees and charges will be determined by the equine, reset by them, and then we'll review them. Is that how? I'm not quite clear on that.
Through the mayor to Councillor Betts, the intention is that they would set the fees, post and advertise and implement them. Should there be a conflict in the future with an organization that perhaps does not agree with the fee or has some justification, there is the ability for them to come forward to council on a case-by-case basis if we needed to review that and work with the Equine Development Committee around that piece.
Therefore, unless there was a conflict, whatever they decide would be what would carry. We wouldn't be reviewing it to say, well, we feel they maybe should be lower, they should be higher. That will be up to the equine group.
As it's written right now, that is correct.
I think that's all for the moment. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Lori, I do have some questions. So I want to, when we talk about this lease agreement, and so we have quite a few $1 lease agreements within the district. We have the KVR. The KVR, we do not give, they have their permissive tax exemption. They have their $1 a year, I believe. We do not give any monies through our capital projects or through our budget deliberations to the KVR for upgrades of any sort for capital. We have the Summerland Golf Club, 30-year lease there. Again, the permissive tax exemption and a $1 lease per year. We do not give them any money for any capital improvements through our budget process. Am I correct in that regard?
I can just correct you there, Councillor Patton. The golf course is not a $1 lease. It's substantially higher than that. Yeah, that's the market.
Yes. Thank you, Dave. I forgot that we went and did the market. But we do have the Summerland Sailing Association that is $1. So we do have the Arts Council, which I believe is another $1, but is done through, it's a public, where public can go in there and there's no membership fees. There's nothing we can, same as the museum. My question being is, we're taking and we're going to be looking at taxpayer dollars at budget time to improve for a single user group. And that is what I have a bit of a hard time with, is when we're talking in the master plan could be upwards of $1.6 million over the next 15 years. We'll be using taxpayer dollars for a single user group for $1 a year that they bring in and do their rentals. They have the opportunity to do grants, but that all goes towards that group to invest into the rodeo grounds. So my question is, why the taxpayer dollars if we're giving them the opportunity to come up with their own funding mechanisms?
Through Mayor to Councillor Patton. So the use of the rodeo grounds while being operated by and managed by the Equine Development Committee is open for the entire community to put on events, do activities, enjoy the activities that are up there. So I would say there is a broader value to the community than just the Equine Committee. But yeah, it's a decision of council on whether those investments are of value when we're talking the major capital upgrades to invest and extend the life of that facility for those type of activities. And that would have to be deliberated and determined if that was good value.
Yes, thank you. And it's the same as what we saw with the Art Council, where they received their grants of $250,000 and then came forward for the renovations. And then through budget deliberations, we also came up with money. And it's no different than what we're going to be doing with the museum properties. So I do get that. It seems that we've heard from the Bluegrass Society, which I think is phenomenal, that what they do up there. But besides the schools, what other public, as we as the district have rented out there for a cost where we've charged for use of the rodeo grounds, besides for the, not the bluegrass, but where else have we done for public where it's generated revenues for us?
Through the mayor to Councillor Patton. So current uses, I'll just quickly go through. So one of the main user groups that has brought in a lot of revenue is the longboarding event that happens up on Jant's Head Mountain. So they rent out, I think it's probably 4 or 5 days of that facility for use at the rodeo grounds. We have, it's a staging area for a lot of sporting events. So when we think of gravel bike races, the BC Bike Race, McClellan Grit, a long distance running event. So a variety of sporting events would happen and they would be hosted in that main area. It's open for, sometimes there's a rustic wedding or events like that that happen up there. So there are a variety of other activities that do use the space.
Thank you. I didn't realize the scope of what really happened up there. So thank you so much.
I think your point, though, that it is an underused facility. And my observation in this community is anything that's run by the municipality or by government is going to be underused. Just look at Center Stage Theater. It's a beautiful facility, which is tragically underused, in my opinion, and it would benefit from somebody else managing it. And we have this model in Summerland, and they're not all exactly the same, but it's a model of a community group managing a public facility. So whether that's the cultural center, the yacht club, the sailing club, the curling club, the golf club, the museum, all these different things. And they do a lot better job at it than we do. And I have no doubt that somebody can do a better job at managing the rodeo grounds than we can. And I think there'll be more opportunities for it to be rented out to other groups. I think because for whatever reason, that model works in Summerland. And I'm sure it works in other communities too, but it certainly works here. So that's why I think this is, I don't know if I think this is the best route to go. Sid, did you want something to say?
I was just gonna add to Lori's list. I think there's also at one point, remember we did the Eisentalk Dam upgrades? I think we put the workers there as camping at the rodeo grounds, if I recall correctly. So sometimes too, district needs are accommodated in using that as well for the broader public endeavor.
Councillor Betts, then Markwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In reflecting upon the lease, and having a $1 a year term with potential for the permissive tax exemption, I can especially see that as useful in the first couple of years, and then with the extension for potentially 3 more years, that's how it is written right now, as being useful to setting up an efficient organization and having the opportunity to apply for grants and start the ball rolling with bookings to actually see some organizational success. And in 5 years' time, if this lease would be approved, I can see having a different kind of view on the facilities and how the larger community is using them. But having, I know it's this reconciling of public money is going into making improvements, but I mean, it's beyond that because some of these facilities are just in tear down status. So there is some responsibility on our side of things. And I think, supporting these community groups, managing these amenities benefits, there can be knockoff benefits for businesses here in town and maybe even for other hotels and like businesses, grocery stores, gas stations. And we just kind of have to think about like the larger impacts coming forward to our community. And those are just the hard decisions we get to make.
You have to also view this in its historical context. The buildings are there now, the whole facility is there now. It was all built by volunteers in Summerland in the equine community. And if this group wasn't there to take over management of it, and hopefully the things that Mayor Holmes said are true, the district would be responsible for it. And it would continue probably on its downwards path rather than an upwards kind of a improvement. The investments and the ideas and the expenditures that go with them in the long-term plan, that's not a budget commitment. That's just, what could be done and how much it would cost. So, they can be reviewed from time to time. If a group was interested in taking any of those items on, that this lease is only for parts of the lands, that would be great. If they can expand the rental uses and get more revenue, which they could put then back into the facilities, that would be great. So this is our best chance to reverse the course that this facility's been on for a long time. That basically the first people aged out of the whole thing, and now we got a keen new group, and let's go.
Councillor Patton?
Thank you. I want to thank you both. It's a perspective that I did not even think of, to tell you the truth. And I was thinking, my first thought was, oh my gosh, here we're going to be dropping a whole bunch of taxpayer dollars, but thank you. You have cleared the air significantly.
Councillor Trainer?
So for the public, if a new group wants to rent this facility, will it say on our website somewhere that this committee now looks after all those kind of bookings? Okay, so then they would just phone them directly or book through their website or whatever?
Yeah, through the mayor, the deputy mayor trainer. We'll probably get a lot of calls, and so we'll definitely direct all the phone calls of any new bookings directly to them. We would update our website to explain that. We would direct it to their website. And we would also send out a notification to all our current user groups of the change as soon as everything was signed and moving forward.
And then if there were any issues to come up in terms of booking or anything like that, those would come to you and then they would come to council. I mean, I don't anticipate those. I'm just trying to think of all the different angles of this. And so I want to make sure that it works for everybody. So if there was some kind of issue, you would hear about it and then we could, and maybe council, we could work through it. Yeah, okay, thank you.
I think what we would try to do is try to work through that directly. And if we couldn't come to agreement or beyond my authority, then we would probably reach out to council for a decision.
Councillor Peak?
Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. I really want to emphasize, as the mayor did, that the collaboration with groups in our community, as we have done in the past, whether it's the sailing club, the rackets club, the golf course, I think those kind of partnerships are a wonderful way of keeping a very engaged, interesting community. And nobody wants a larger contingent of administrative staff to do more and more things. I think that community groups do a much better job. And the opportunity to do it at the rodeo grounds in a more formal sense, because really those people made that facility what it is. So I think it's a great opportunity and I think it's a good model and I look forward to seeing it happen well. Thank you very much, everybody, for the work you put into it.
Thank you. Councillor Barton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe I read when I went through it earlier, the 3 priorities for the group. And the first priority was to, I can't find it again, but I'm sure I saw it, was to work on the footing. And my understanding there's take the beach cleaner up there and try and screen out the rocks. And how did that go and what's going to be next for the footing?
Through the mayor to Councillor Barkwell. So yes, we've used the beach cleaner. We did one round through it and it was quite successful. It's now really busy on the beaches right now, so we're not able to get up there on a regular basis, but we can come up again and do another screen of it. And we'll be talking to the Equine Development Committee as far as what the priorities are coming up this month, because we're starting to put together our capital budget and we'll be getting input from them as far as their thoughts around footing. My understanding in our initial discussions is that was going to be a priority that they would be looking for investment in versus the district, but further discussion to happen on that.
Councillor Metz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be happy to bring the motion forward as recommended by staff.
Okay, that's on the screen right now. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barkwell? Any further discussion? Yep.
Thank you. It's just a point of order, and that might be to our Director of Corporate Services. It's just that in item, this one, 9.2, the lease is listed as 18707 Bathville Road, but in agenda item 9.1.1, which we received for information, the master plan, the address is listed as 17202 Bathville Road, which is the landfill. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
They could manage the landfill too if they want.
The lease is correct here. It's the previous agenda item 9.1 that we already voted upon, and it just has the wrong address, and I wanted that to be clear.
Okay, so the issue is with the previous item, not this one.
That's right.
Okay, so let's just carry on. They'll figure out what to do with the next one, the last one. So we'll, if no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, that carries. So then for 9.1, corporate officers, that's. Yeah, oh yeah, I see in the motion, it's got the landfill address, the wrong address. So what do we do about that? Yeah, fair enough. That's good.
I think ultimately, in theory, I mean, hindsight's 2020, we shouldn't even have included an address in the resolution. I don't know if we need to do anything because the resolution is to endorse the master plan. So council could call for a reconsideration of that motion. And we could go through that process to then change the wording. So it would bring us back to the original motion if council so chooses.
Well, I guess I could bring it back for reconsideration right now, and then we would revote on the same motion, turn that down and bring another motion forward without the address in? Is that the process?
Correct. So if we bring forward a reconsideration, and you'll just unfortunately have to give me 5 minutes to go through a procedure bylaw, it would bring us not on this resolution. Greg, can you go back to the previous screen, please? It would bring us back to this motion as we would reconsider it. So this would be on the floor, so it would need an amendment. We would just change the address at the bottom and then council would revote on it.
So, and as mayor, I can bring back for reconsideration right now.
Let me look at the community charter. I believe so. So you are able, as the mayor, to initiate a reconsideration, as we're at the same meeting. And we can. I'm just gonna open up her procedure bylaw. Okay, so yeah, if we voted on this, so we can write in the minutes that the mayor brought forward a reconsideration on, it would be resolution, the one on the screen, but it's resolution RA 2024-5.
Okay, so I'll bring that back as a reconsideration. So that puts it back on the floor.
Back on the
So
floor.
someone need to bring in amendments to the motion.
No amendment, so the motion's on the floor. It hasn't been, at this point now that it's back, it hasn't been moved and seconded. So we
Oh.
would change this
Okay.
to say,
We can just get rid of the address and just say put the period after property. That works. Okay, so I need a motion,
we need to move our.
a mover, seconder. Somebody want to move that? Counselor Betts, second. Counselor Peak, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries, none opposed. Okay. Clear as mud. So 9.3, Canada Community Building Fund Agreement, and that is Director of Finance, please.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. Council may recall during 2024 budget deliberations that the annual gas tax funding we received from the federal government was ending. At the time, we were aware that the province and the federal governments were working on a new agreement. However, nothing had been finalized at that time. So before council today is the new funding agreement, now known as the Canada Community Building Fund Agreement. This is a 10-year agreement that will provide initial funding to the district of $611,000 in the first 3 years, with an increase to $636,200 in years 4 and 5. These funds are to be used for capital projects and will be incorporated into the district's 2025 budget cycle. Council authorization is needed in order to sign this agreement. Thank you.
Okay, anybody wants any money, we could bring that forward. Somebody want to bring the motion forward? Councillor Patton, Councillor Peak, any questions, discussion? Then I'll call the question. Can we get that on the screen? Might not need it, but it's just authorize. I think would be, yeah, there we go. So I'll call the question, all in favor? And none opposed, that carries. Items removed from the consent agenda, letter E. That is from BC Hydro, Councillor Peak.
Get my note here. It's close to, I don't know if I've highlighted this property, I had a running out higher. So it's a Rev 6, Revelstoke Unit 6 project. But it's something to do with being close to Summerland and a capacitor station near Summerland. This goes to our utility and they will be looking at that. I'm just wondered how that works.
I'll maybe ask the CEO too.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Peak, and through the mayor, obviously. This is something we're trying to learn more about ourselves. So we've read all the background materials and cannot seem to find a location and detailed description of this capacitor sort of station. We are familiar with those stations are. We don't have a concern with the idea of it, but we'd like to learn more about where it is. And our director has, in fact, just yesterday afternoon, reached out to Deborah Lamash of BC Hydro, asking to have further discussions, and that's in follow-up to a voice message he left her last week as well. So we're just looking forward to getting the information back from BC Hydro, and then we'll have the detailed information.
I'll add that the RDS received the same letter, so I assume I would think it's probably outside our municipal boundaries, but do you want to follow up, Councillor Peak?
If I may, would make sense to me. They should be GPS identified. Thank you very much for the discussion. Appreciate it, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Marco?
Yeah, some years, ago, or during our first term, they had about 6 people from BC Hydro sitting at the Arts Center all afternoon as public engagement for this. And my understanding at that time it was going to be, I don't know what a capacitor station looks like, but it would be on the road to Eisentalk, the Bathville Road, right where the power line is. There's a widening there. People park all the time for snowmobiling and stuff. And it'd be right there, right next to the power line out there, which doesn't connect to us at all and doesn't really have a whole lot to do with Summerland.
Okay. So we just need a motion to receive this letter. Councillor Trainer, Councillor Peak, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. And now, number H. That is from the Ministry of Agriculture. Councillor Betts.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring this one forward. It's drought resources for local governments from the BC Ministry of Agriculture and Food. And the idea is to help prepare and respond to drought conditions. There's different opportunities like the Investment Agriculture Foundation website, which of course I didn't know. There's some agricultural water infrastructure programs, which could possibly help us with some funding towards our Giant's Head system separation, just kind of as an idea. So for one item, I thought kind of on the district side, and secondly, just if there was a way that we could share this information with our farming community. I don't actually know how we directly connect with them, whether that's through the Agricultural Advisory Committee, or if there's kind of a group of local farmers that receive emails from the district. I just think this is a resource that would be useful for them to know about, seeing as it came from us, and just opportunities for them to kind of protect their own properties, and for us as a farming district to support our farmers in times of drought. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good idea. We could probably distribute to our Ag Committee, the members of this letter. Yeah, thanks. Councillor Peak.
Thank you. I had all those same thoughts as well. So I'm really pleased that we all think about these things. In terms of granting or beneficial management practice programs, but in terms of any grants that might be available too, are there any opportunities both for the twinning or for cost recovery on our, I know it's called something else, but I'm going to say second service. Just wondering whether those kind of things are recoverable, even though we're in the midst of. So thank you very much.
SEO.
Yeah, in fact, thank you for the question through to Councillor Peak. So the Agriculture Water Infrastructure Program is one that we are looking at to apply to for assistance with respect to separation of one of our areas in the sort of upstream portion of the Giant's Head connections. And that one is a process, going off memory here, that you first have to express an interest. So we're working through that process, and then you're invited to apply if they believe your project is close to what their desired program criteria are. So we're working through the expression of interest process right now. Hopefully you'll be invited to apply on that one to support our water separation.
Excellent. Good.
If they're interested in our interest. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Peak.
Motion to accept.
Second. Councillor Betts, all in favor? That carries. We'll now have a resolution to close the meeting pursuant to sections 91C and 91M of the Community Charter. Councillor Betts, Councillor Peak, and that carries. And then we'll reconvene the open meeting at 6 p.m. this evening. And that's after we finish our closed meeting.